Greetings and salutations, knowledge seekers, and welcome to this video. Today I want to talk to you about the concept of personal detachment or emotional detachment, whatever you want to call it. It's a psychological concept, so that means that it's derivative and it's based on the work of individuals that are much smarter than the vast majority of psychologists. And I kid the psychologist a little bit when I say this. I'm being a little bit sarcastic and facetious. But there's also a lot of truth to what I'm saying. And about the science, that is. And I'm gonna prove it a little bit in the beginning of this video. And then I'm gonna go into what I'm actually talking about when I say personal and emotional detachment. And what kind of lessons from ancient times or from ancient thought we can draw in our modern day society, right? Because the concept of emotional detachment is not unique to the 20th or the 21st century. I know that it's becoming very popular now, and there's a lot of videos out there that by psychologists that explain exactly what that means and like practical steps of how you're supposed to do it. But hey, as I said, we as as a group of individuals, humanity has known this for quite a while. So let's start there. Let's start with Stoicism, for instance. Let's start with Marcus Aurelius and his work on his famous book Meditations. So how did he do that? How did he accomplish this this feat of writing a book that's 2,000 years or 1900 years after it's been written is still incredibly relevant and feels like one of the most influential philosophical texts out there? Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor, so he had a lot on his plate, right? And one of his strong suits was his discipline and his meticulous routine that he had every day. And every day he was journaling. So in the morning when you wake up, interestingly enough, that's the best kind of morning routine you can have. You wake up, you get some sun, some exercise, and then you sit down and you do some work. And that's when you're most productive. And so this guy actually figured that out on his own, right? Now we're doing research and we're empirically proving that that's the case, which is awesome. It's good for everybody to know definitively that that's the best way of doing things. But he was able to intuitively come to the same conclusion that yes, in fact, I'm most productive in the morning. So every morning, regardless of how tired I am, regardless of how much other stuff I have to do, I'm gonna journal for a certain period of time. And that journaling resulted in, or ended up being this amazing piece of literature that everybody is now striving to quote and to live by. I think the quoting part is easier. I think the living by is a little bit more difficult, but either which way. So one of his quotes is that you should not try to find yourself in the majority, but rather you should strive to distance yourself from them and to find your place among the insane. Not a direct quote, I butchered it. But that's the gist of what it was trying to say. And another way of looking at this is that the masses are poisonous. Their opinions, their views on the world, their way of behaving. We've all been in a group of people that are misbehaving, and we've all went along with it because, of group pressure and the desire not to feel ostracized. So it's very easy to understand why you shouldn't allow yourself to be dragged into the toxic behavior of a group of individuals, right? Um, Another influential philosopher that came much, much later, Arthur Schopenhauer, the German philosopher, 19th century philosopher. He spoke about the fact that the most profound expression of thought, he was a very humble man. He spoke about the fact that the most profound expression of thought can only happen via philosophy. Coincidentally, he was a philosopher. But also, he emphasized that philosophy is not for the masses. So philosophy is written for the select few that can understand it. It's actually religion that is for the masses, because it uses allegory and metaphors that are easy for people to understand and allow them to, in that way, better relate to the subject matter. And what neither of these two men, neither Marcus Aurelius nor Arthur Schopenhauer, could have foreseen, is the work of Sigmund Freud and many other, Carl Jung, many other famous and talented psychologists and psychiatrists. Psychiatry is something different. So psychiatrists are actually medical doctors. I want to make that distinction. I have a lot of respect for medical doctors that deal with actual human conditions that are very difficult to engage with, to help people get better from clinical depressions and many other diseases of the mind that we barely understand. And you use both medicine and many other complex tricks, methods to lure the mind into perceiving the world in a different way, into thinking differently. That's very, very difficult. But psychology, that's just for rich people that have a lot of time on their hands. And if you don't believe me, go find a psychologist in an African village, right? So relatively rich people, rich in the context of the Western world versus a lot of poor, underdeveloped parts of the planet. An 8-minute introduction, that's probably going to be beloved by the algorithm. But the work of psychologists everywhere has led us to this very simple expression of the fruits of the labor of philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Arthur Schopenhauer, right? And it's about this emotional detachment. Ooh, what a revolutionary concept we came with that nobody has ever thought about. How about, now check this out, guys. How about, instead of overreacting in social context, instead of allowing ourselves to be guided by our emotions, we steady ourselves and we just don't react. That's groundbreaking stuff, right? Nobody has ever mentioned emotional discipline in any other kind of context before the 21st century. And it's just so easy also. Like, it's hard. Like, I'm gonna tell you that it's hard, like every other psychologist out there. It's very hard. It requires a lot of work. But here's 3 easy steps to do it. 1, take a deep breath. 2, think about the situation in a different way. What if you were talking to a child? Or what if you were talking to yourself as a child? Would you be mean to that person? No, you wouldn't. And then 3, just don't react. Just say something like, okay, I see your point. and think to yourself, you are not in control of my emotions. You are not gonna take over me emotionally today. I am the master of my own being. It's very easy, really. I mean, it's just that simple, right? Uh, in reality, it's exceptionally hard, and that's not something that you can do by just talking about emotionally detaching. That's what I think. I think you need to have a completely different perspective of who you are in order to be able to sit, or to rather stand so firmly uh, into the moment and fully master your emotional state, because that's the most difficult thing you can do as a human being, honestly, because you have two sets of thinking, two parts of your brain, right? In this context, you have the more primitive part of your brain. You have the amygdala, which is responsible for emotional response, and then you have the prefrontal cortex, which is basically the executive function, which tells you, well, you know, as a practical example, you really been annoyed with a colleague of yours, and this guy is constantly on you and is, making these snarky little comments about your job performance, about how you dress, or about how you look, or about this and that, constantly being derogatory to you. So what your amygdala thinks is that this guy is a threat. It perceives him as a threat. And what do you do to threats, right? You attack them. So your amygdala is basically telling you physically go and punch that guy in the face. But then you have your prefrontal cortex that's like, oh, no, 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 no. If you do that, you're going to go to jail. Your life is going to be ruined. So don't do that. Instead, just get angry. And, make snarky comments back to that guy, right? And get into this kind of tit for tat, back and forth, a meaningless interaction that's going to lead you nowhere. But we all do it. We all do it because the initial response that we get is so strong that it's very difficult to overcome. And that's the point of my video. The point of my video is not to say that, even though I made a lot of fun out of the concept, right? Emotional detachment. Because I think it's a stupid name. I think it oversimplifies the situation, and I think it implies, which is what bothers me the most, it implies that if you're unable to do that, take a deep breath and think about something else and steady yourself. If you're unable to do that, you're somehow failing. That's what bothers me about it. It's presented in such a simple, overly simplistic manner that it's like, but how are you not able to accomplish that? It's so easy, man. Come on, be better. At least that's how I feel about it. Maybe people are feeling very like upbeat when they hear it, and then they just implement it, and then their lives are completely different, right? That's the thing, is there are no simple solutions. There are no mental shortcuts when you can just be like, oh, okay, now I'm a better individual, and I can just emotionally detach. um, I think emotional detachment is the product of a lifetime of effort to understand who you are, why you are like that, what makes you tick, what triggers you, what are your insecurities. It's conditional on things that are even a lot less profound, right? How much did you sleep today? How was your morning? Did you get time to have breakfast? How was your coffee? When you were getting into the building at work, did somebody hold the door for you, or did they shut it in your face? In the elevator, did somebody smell a little bit funky, and you felt like, ugh, disgusted by that individual? When you went into your office, right? Did your colleagues ignore you a little bit because they were busy, maybe not necessarily because they ignored you, but did you maybe not have the interaction that you hoped to have when you were on your way through the door, right? All of these things affect your emotional state, and many, 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 many others as well, right? And just saying, oh, okay, I shall detach emotionally is just naive. It's not even realistic to have this expectation of yourself. No, I would say attach emotionally. Feel what you need to feel. If you are mad at somebody, feel mad, right? Oh yeah, right. I missed one. If you're too mad, then you should just detach yourself from the situation. That's why I said physical detachment as well. And that's actually that is a reasonable effort of last resort, right? Because that's not weird social behavior. Just in the middle of the conversation, fuck off. Like, I don't feel like this anymore. F it. That doesn't send any kind of signals to anybody. But it's much more reasonable to instead of simplifying this and presenting it in a manner that everybody can understand. I get it that I'm rambling, and I get it that maybe it's very difficult for people to follow my train of thought. But hey, it's mine, so it's the best I can do. Uh, but my point is that it's much better to feel your emotions and to try to understand them. So why am I getting triggered now? What do I wanna accomplish with this? What's the end goal? What do I desire to achieve by feeling this type of way? And how is it gonna help me in the long run? Like trying to, and already not while you are in the situation, ask yourself these questions. Don't get me wrong, because in the situation, if you can think, you think. If you are emotionally detached already, you don't need to be working on your ability to emotionally detach, right? Because if you're thinking, then you're not necessarily, your emotions are at least not the thing that controls you in this at this point in time. But if you are not able to rationally recognize the potential consequences of your actions, that's when you're vulnerable. And for that, you should just have a strategy beforehand. And whatever that might be, right? Whatever your weakness is, emotionally, you should just be prepared for those moments and have a certain way of acting planned in your mind. And then the more you do that, the better the better prepared you are for what life has to throw at you. The more you can proactively control yourself. And again, not emotionally detach, because I think that's impossible in situations that are actually triggering you. And there will always be situations that actually trigger you. But manage your emotional responses in a much better way. That will be all for this video. Thank you guys for listening and watching. I hope you like this content. If you do, please like and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.